Sup, y'all? I am your host, Tayler Onion, and this is Hang Time, where we focus on amplifying the stories of women in sports. This episode is part one of our three-part series with BSN Sports and their SURGE program. We are back this week with Aaron Hart, who serves as the Vice President of Curriculum and Program Engagement at Varsity Brands, and he also serves as a lecturer at SUNY Cortland. Aaron, welcome. Let's get some hang time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to hang with you.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on today. So I mentioned that you currently serve as the VP of Curriculum and Program Engagement at Varsity Brands. Again, that's through BSN Sports, which is a major uniform equipment distributor all throughout the States. And are you global as well, or is it just in the States?
Primarily in the United States. So Varsity Spirit is one of our sister companies, and they have a global reach because cheerleading is expanding massively internationally. So that would be our global connection there. But BSN Sports primarily serves schools and organizations, colleges right here in the United States.
Okay, awesome. So again, through that, you're overseeing a ton of curriculum and programming, specifically with the SURGE program, which is how I got to know you. I think there's more beyond that, but we'll focus obviously on SURGE for today. I would love to start with how you got involved with Varsity Brands and with BSN Sports.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've got lots of stories for probably a different sort of context, but I'm a physical education teacher by training, and I started my teaching career in New York City many, many years ago. So I taught in East New York, Brooklyn, and really developed an understanding of how important curriculum and resources were in the hands of skilled teachers and how those resources can really impact the experience that kids have. And so, my career evolved. I ended up at SUNY Cortland, did a lot of curriculum writing. And about 12 years ago, I had an opportunity to join the BSN team with the sole mission of creating content that we would then give away to teachers everywhere and coaches everywhere. So SURGE is a part of that legacy. Everything that we create is free for coaches everywhere. They just have to go on to bsnsports.com/surge and register. And then they have access to all of the curriculum that we create 100% for free. And although SURGE is relatively new as a part of that ecosystem, this is a commitment that was made by the BSN and Varsity Brands leadership 12 years ago, and we've been serving folks ever since.
The original, or maybe I should say just some of the other curriculum, has a really strong focus on physical education specifically, which, as I understand it, is kind of your area of expertise at SUNY Cortland as well. So maybe we'll talk about the kind of crossover between what you do as a lecturer and then how you're building that in, if at all, if there's any crossover there with how you kind of build your curriculum and programming with the BSN team.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably the primary benefit of me being here at the college is the fact that teaching and coaching is a muscle. And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And so the ability for me to be in a classroom every semester working with young people and really staying on top of, what's on people's, young people's minds today, what are their challenges, and, hearing it directly from them. And at the other time, I have an incredible network of colleagues that I see in the hallways and, at faculty meetings and things like that are just wonderful people to bounce ideas off of. And, from coaches to professors, and then all of the teachers that are alum of SUNY Cortland. So we're the largest physical education school, I think, in the country at this point. So we have almost 1,000 undergraduate physical education majors. And that's a lot of future physical educators and coaches. And so there's red dragons everywhere, and it's just a great network to be a part of.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about SURGE, again, being kind of one of maybe the later additions to that lineup of curriculum that's really rooted in physical education and essentially kind of a train the trainer system, right? Like build out the curriculum, make sure that all of the coaches and everybody else has those has that education again to be able to utilize in their own spaces and organizations. But SURGE is specifically dedicated to the coaches of female athletes. It's supposed to help kind of empower girls and help them both develop stronger physical and mental resilience through sports, which is in line with obviously what we're doing on Hang Time and even beyond that. Where did the idea for Surge come from as you were building out the curriculum for some of these other pieces? What made you think we need something specific for girls in sports?
So this honestly comes pretty organically from the leaders we have within BSN Sports. So some folks might not know this, some people may know this. We have incredible leaders and executives that are women at BSN Sports that lead teams of, really, really strong teammates. And they crush it, right? And most of those leaders are former female athletes, right? They either played in high school or college, and they took the lessons that they learned, on the court or on the field, and brought them to BSN Sports as executives and leaders. So, we were in this kind of like Caitlin Clark moment for women's sports, and everybody's looking around saying, "This is amazing, the momentum that's being built here." And of course, this is a legacy of amazing women for decades that have been building to this point. And Susan Riley, who leads our marketing team, basically took this opportunity and said, "We're going to go to leadership and we're going to build out this empowerment program for young girls. Are you with me?" And I was like, "Sign me up. I'm along for the ride." Right. And what was fantastic, and I kind of knew this going in, I think Susan had a good sense of it too. Leadership at BSN and Varsity Brands, they were basically like, "Okay, when do you get started? Like, let's do this." It wasn't a question. No one really had to convince anybody. It was good timing. And, we have to realize BSN Sports is a business. And as opportunities for girls and women to play sport emerges, we sell more uniforms, right? And so there's a win-win-win that happens all around. But really, huge hats off to Susan and the women leaders at BSN Sports who, took this personally. And I'm just grateful to be able to work alongside of them.
You've gotten some pretty big names involved as kind of ambassadors for the Surge program. One of which is Allison Schmidt, who I'm excited to have on as a part of this series as well, who is a multi-medal winning Olympian, of course, swimmer. Donald Driver, who's a former NFL player, has been involved. Nancy Lieberman, who is a basketball legend, has been involved as well. Since you launched in March of 2024, I'm pulling this from my research that I was doing earlier today. Since you launched in March of 2024, this curriculum has been adopted by over 9,500 athletic programs in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., and it supports now more than 605,000 female athletes. Was that part of kind of when you thought about it, were you like, "Oh, this is going to have this big of an impact"?
We hoped that it would.
Yeah.
And, honestly, as a part of BSN Sports for as long as I have been, you don't really dream small, you dream big. And if any company or any entity, I think, were to be able to hit those numbers that you just talked about, it would be BSN Sports, right? And, it's important to talk about Allison and Nancy and Donald. And, we don't just create this content in a vacuum. Allison has been with us from the very beginning, and some people might not know, but she has a master's degree in counseling and social work. And she's very, very passionate around mental health and its impact on all athletes, but especially female athletes. And so having her as a partner in developing some of the earlier curriculum pieces has been so incredible. I can't even, express how grateful I am to have been able to work with her. Donald Driver, incredible human being, incredible advocate for flag football, but also just women's sports everywhere. And his ideas are like, you throw it in hyperdrive when you're talking to Donald Driver. I mean, he has a lot of incredible ideas and thoughts, and we're still working to figure out what's the next, layer of Donald Driver content. So, yeah, I mean, vision wise, and I don't want to forget Nancy because she is amazing as well. And I know one of your questions is, what female in sports would you like to get some hang time with? She has always been on my list, and I've now been able to hang out with her a few times and talk content, curriculum, and a little bit of basketball. But I have somebody else for later in the podcast too. I don't want any spoilers. But regardless, I think that we are dreaming bigger. Even right, we're at the beginning of Surge, and the numbers that you just alluded to are really just the first 2 years of us giving it all that we have. And this isn't a 2-year program. This is a 10, 20, 30-year program, because girls sports are going to be around forever. So we're here to support it.
Yeah, I love that. We know, so obviously there's been so much growth that's happening on the women's sports side at the professional level. We're seeing it happen at the college level. There's more media attention. There's all of these things that are happening. We know that still girls are dropping out of sports at the rate of, I think it's 2 times compared to boys. And so what are some of the biggest reasons? This is going to be a twofold. What are the biggest reasons you think that is happening? And then what is Surge doing to try and help on the trainer side? Like, what kinds of tools are you providing to coaches to kind of help reverse that trend?
Yeah. So if we look at the overall trend, there's actually a lot of factors, right? Everything from access to sports bras. And, obviously we can't create a curriculum specifically to that. Nike's done a wonderful job of educating folks. The folks from Dove have done an incredible job. And there's resources to help with fittings. But beyond that, really, I think as we look at sports as a whole, sometimes we miss the reasons why girls get involved with sports from the beginning. And we layer on expectations and pressures, and we forget about the fact that these girls are coming together to be on a team, to be a part of a community, and to grow as a friend, to grow as an active contributing member to that community. And so what we want to be able to do is empower the coaches of those athletes to have conversations that create safe spaces so these girls can come in and contribute to a team, contribute to a family environment, and understand that they're powerful, and that the relationships and lessons that they're going to learn with that group of young people and with the mentors that they have in place, that's going to lead them into the future and hopefully as leaders of a brighter future for all of us, right? Like, I think that young women especially, they feel like, maybe they're not good enough, or they can't practice enough, or they don't have enough money for the best coaches, or what's the point of doing this if I can't X, Y, Z, whatever the goal might be. And, we need to help these young women understand that every player on a team can contribute, and everything that they contribute is equally as important, whether you're the leading scorer or whether you're the practice player that's pushing the leading scorer towards the next W for the team, right? So we have a lot of resources on the Surge website now, but they all circle back to this idea of, let's build chemistry and communication networks within teams, between coaches, between players, that are positive, that create safe spaces, and that help all of the players understand that they matter, that them showing up to practice or games or team meetings makes a difference. And once we can help these young girls feel that confidence, they're going to be there. They're going to stay. They're going to come back. And whether they're in the starting lineup or whether they're a practice player, they're going to show up season after season. That's the goal.
What are some of the ways, I don't want to ask you to give away the secret sauce here, obviously, but what are some of maybe the core skills or the mindsets? Like, how are you training these coaches to be able to essentially have this trickle down effect to girls in sports and girl athletes?
Yeah. So there's no secret sauce. And like I said, it's free. So anybody can go on there and figure it out. But the way that I've kind of approached holistically the work that we're doing is from the standpoint of power, right? And we want to empower young girls to go through this process of becoming stronger and more confident to claim their rights, right? And we know, especially, women have had to fight for this.
Mm.
They've had to fight for the right to be able to go out and play basketball at the highest level and get TV contracts so that it can be, broadcast in sports bars all over the country. I mean, that's a struggle that happened for decades, right? So how do we pass that legacy along to young girls today? And it really comes down to us telling these young girls they're powerful. And if we look at the definition of power, it's the ability to influence behaviors based on control of a resource, right? So my classic example is, if I controlled all the water in the world, I'd have tremendous power because it's a resource everyone needs, right?
Mm.
So if you look at what are the resources that girls need as they join a team, it's pretty simple because these are the resources every human is searching after. Number one is safety. They want to be able to feel physically and mentally safe, right? And number two, they want to feel connected and that they matter. And that's it. That's what we are all after, and that's where everyone's power derives from, right? So if I controlled all the water, it really boils down to safety. And Tayler, if I said to you, you're the water czar, right? Now it's going to make you feel like you matter, and it's going to give you a sense of power. So how do we let these young girls know? And so some of these conversations are as simple as, hey, when your teammates show up and you tell them that you're glad to see them, it fills both those buckets. It makes them feel like they're safe and they can be themselves in this space, and it makes them feel like they matter. When we tear our teammates down for any reason, or we try to elevate ourselves above them for whatever reason, then it erodes that, that trust in, do I matter and do I feel safe? So all of the materials in one way or another are geared towards helping coaches create these safe spaces where every single athlete feels like they matter. And that's the formula. That's kind of the secret sauce.
I was thinking about earlier today, just some of the experiences that I've had, obviously playing sports growing up and being a collegiate athlete, and obviously working in athletics for the last 10, 12 years, and just being around coaches and student athletes and all these different things. Sometimes it really is as simple as just saying like whatever you want to happen out loud for a coach. Like I'm thinking we had a rule on my college team that was check your bags at the door. So if you've got stuff going on in class or with your friends or your family or boyfriend, whatever, when you get to the gym, check it at the door because we're here now to practice and focus on this thing. And I was thinking earlier today, like if that had not been a rule within our team, would that still be something I carry today? Like if I'm going into a meeting to try and check everything else that is happening outside, to be able to have this kind of compartmentalized focus, essentially. And I think what you just said about girls in sports and saying as simple as, hey, when you show up for your teammates and you talk about, hey, I'm so glad to play with you or to be with you or whatever it is, that's a positive thing. When you tear them down, how does that feel? And it seems really silly that it's as simple as that, as just having these kind of conversations and putting specific language to, hey, this is how we want our team to run. So let's set the ground rules at the beginning and this is how it works. It seems like an oversimplified way to look at things, but it sounds like you found kind of a secret sauce in that.
It sounds, okay, so it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right? Yes, 100%.
I think that's the important kind of piece to call out. And a lot of it is this, like, when have we as coaches, when have we been trained to walk up to our 12-year-old female athletes and look them in the eye and say, you're powerful? Never, right? I mean, no one ever really came and told me that specifically, whether as a young person or as an adult, right? So a lot of times we kind of cloud our interpretation of power in what we see on TV or in the news or whatever, and power becomes this like icky thing, right? But it's not. We're all powerful. Let's embrace it. Let's use our power for good and not evil.
Yeah.
Right. But let's embrace the fact that we're not all powerful, but we are all powerful, right? And I don't want any of the surge materials. None of us want any of the surge materials to take up so much time in a coach's, day that it becomes a focal point. So we felt like it had to be simple, right? And we have posters, and I always think back to Ted Lasso, the whole Believe poster and how that became almost like a character in the
Hmm.
show. Well, we have a series of posters that coaches can just hang up in team spaces, and the girls are going to come in and be exposed to the vocabulary that's used on those posters, the concepts that are given on those posters. It can be as simple as that. And then we encourage the coaches, use those words that are on those posters when you're running your drills, right? When you have your team meetings, throw those words in there so the girls can kind of understand how they work in context. And in that way, you can still focus on winning. By the way, BSN Sports, we're all about winning, right? We are
Right.
competitive people. But at the same time, there's incredible lessons when you don't win. So how do we transform those lessons, use this powerful language, and then move into something that is going to make us better human beings on the other side of it? So I kind of got
Yeah.
lost in where the question was there, but I'm with you. We need to simplify it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's the thing is like that's what makes things successful, right? When it's simple to implement and all it takes is effort in that piece. So you mentioned it's simple, but it's not easy. Like the through line that I'm hearing through the curriculum and the things that you're developing is really just intention and the intent of the coach or the leader in that space to use these words or to intentionally set kind of guidelines and those pieces for their players or their athletes who are on their team. I'm curious to know what kind of feedback you have gotten from schools or coaches or even from girls who are playing on these teams. Has there been kind of a tangible thing that you've heard from them as far as takeaways?
The feedback's been outstanding. The biggest piece of feedback from coaches is they like the fact two things. Number one, it's free, and it may be a little bit of a different angle on the fact that it's free, but there's a lot of content, so they don't feel guilty if they only use one or two things,
Mm,
right? If they only pick and choose the things that match their coaching style, they don't feel like they just wasted a bunch of money, right?
sure.
And for us, if they use those one or two things effectively and it matches their coaching style and it helps empower their athletes, that's a victory. We don't need them to use, 100% of the curriculum in order for it to be effective. Every single tool can be effective in its own way. So that's been probably the biggest feedback from the coaches, as well as just the community that's kind of sprung up around Surge as well. The social media team does an incredible job of highlighting, different teams that we work with across the country, and everybody loves to see themselves get a shout out on Instagram from BSN Sports, and things like that. So that's been a really important space. Last semester, last school year, we did a study with the women's golf team here at SUNY Cortland. And so I came in and I worked with the coach, and we implemented Surge over the course of a full semester as they were going into the conference championship. So the beginning of the semester all the way through the end of the season. And number one, I enjoyed my time tremendously. The girls were absolutely amazing. Um, but at the beginning of the season, we set an intention as a group where they were all on the same page. They were going to win the conference championship, 100% going to win the conference championship. There were some struggles because the team they had to beat in the conference championship had beat them the last two times.
Mm,
So it wasn't a slam dunk, right? I mean, it was definitely an uphill climb. Um, but we worked on how do we respond when we hit the ball, in the trap? How do we respond when, we're off course or we miss a putt? And what does that look like? Not only how do we respond it ourselves with our self-talk, but how do we respond as teammates? How can we lift each other up? And the feedback that we got, and that research has not been finished yet. Like the research is done, but they're still going through the peer review process and all that. So I can't give away too much of it, but I was blown away. Right. And the one thing that I really took out away from it that I loved was the athletes said they had to take responsibility for their own self-talk.
Mm.
And because they were able to do that, it gave them more confidence on the course. And really what this becomes is like, I don't know if you know anything about coaching golf, but when you send out your golf team, you can't just be there coaching them, right? You're actually looking at an app on your phone or your iPad, and now you can see them all over the course and you can make your rounds. But for the most part, they have to coach themselves. And the girls felt like the work that we did and the work that we did together in unifying the team really gave them the confidence to do that self-coaching. So that was really, really cool. By the way, they did win the conference championship.
Amazing.
Coach Merkley is a former student of mine, so I'm super proud of her. She was coach of the year for the conference.
Awesome.
And so it couldn't have gone any better. And I don't want to say that it's all because of Surge, because they were incredibly talented girls that worked very hard, and coach should have been coach of the year. She's amazing. But that probably highlighted, for me, we're onto something here, and sometimes when you throw it out to numbers, thousands and thousands of athletes, you have to, and this is again why I love being at the university, right? Coaching's a muscle, teaching's a muscle. And when I can be there in the trenches with these girls and see how it impacts them directly, it's awesome.
Yeah. I love that. What we love when a story has a happy ending, first of all.
Yes.
This one has multiples, right? Former student, coach of the year, all the things. I love it.
We couldn't have written it any better. And I was sweating it for a weekend, let me tell you.
I believe it. Okay, before we shifted to kind of our final few questions here, our wrap up, I want to ask about your shirt. We were talking about this a little bit offline before we got started, but it says girl athletes today become women leaders tomorrow. That shirt I have seen pop up in several places on social media and otherwise. Tell me maybe the idea behind that shirt and why you think it's been such a sensation, if you will.
Well, I love this shirt because it represents the women leaders at BSN Sports who were girl athletes and now are leading the charge to make Surge what it's become. So first and foremost, I would follow these women anywhere they would lead me. I think they're just tremendous professionals, and human beings for that matter. So to me, that it resonates there. As a girl dad, my daughter's 26 years old and she grew up playing softball. By the way, if you're a former baseball player, you have no business coaching your girls' softball team. You just teach them bad habits. But I will say she had incredible coaches through high school, and then she actually was on the equestrian team at college and had an incredible coach there. And I can see the confidence that she walks around with and her ability to accomplish the things that she has accomplished just as a young professional have been, for a dad, I couldn't be prouder of her. And so it's kind of a personal message for me because I've seen it firsthand. I work with people who embody this, and it's impacted my family. So, and here's the other thing: we need women leaders, right? I've talked about the executive level leadership at BSN. We have incredible young women at the manager level at BSN Sports. And these young women are going to be incredible leaders moving forward, whether it's with BSN or whatever company they end up being a part of. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for a new wave of women leaders to kind of take the reins and start fixing a few things that maybe some of us men have broken.
I like it. For if there are coaches, educators, parents, anybody who's listening, who's kind of heard the overall of Surge, and even for the other curriculum that y'all have, what is one thing that you would want them to take away from what they've heard today? Like, what's one thing they could do to implement in their own community to help better support girls in sports?
Continue to create safe spaces. And safe spaces, a lot of times we think physically safe, and that's certainly important. But I think what we need to really do is protect our young female athletes so that they understand that making mistakes is a part of growth, and
Mm.
you're safe to make mistakes here. You're not going to be, ostracized. You're not going to be removed from the larger group. And I think as we get into, an era where parents are hyper focused on their child's success, and I can say this as a parent, sometimes we forget that those mistakes and the barriers that they have to overcome are a part of the success, right? And so we as parents just want to like bulldoze all of the barriers out of the way. But instead of doing that, like let's create this safe space so when they do have to overcome a barrier, maybe a barrier kicks them in the face and they get knocked down, um, they understand that they have a community behind them, supporting them, and we're here for them to, just get back up and continue. So that would be my hope, is that we just continue to create these safe spaces for young female athletes to play. And I know women have more opportunities today than they've ever had before, but it's not promised, right? And so all of us, dads, moms, uncles, we have to be very, very intentional about making sure those safe spaces exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so many follow-up questions I want to ask, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep us
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the question that I always ask at the end. You talked about Nancy Lieberman, but you said you had something in your back pocket. So now I'm asking directly, if you could get some hang time with any woman in sports, who would it be and why?
So for me, it's Pat Summitt.
Mm.
And so I live just south of Syracuse, so I'm a big college hoops fan, big Syracuse fan. And I also grew up in the era where obviously Jim Boeheim's huge, right? There were these massive personality coaches that dominated college basketball, right? And Pat Summitt was somebody who was always a part of the conversation when it came to great coaching. And, so her name would be right up there alongside the greats on the men's side. And so it just made me curious, right? And so I learned more about Tennessee basketball, and it was a lot harder to kind of gain access to watching, especially if it wasn't, Syracuse women. But as I kind of grew older and started a coaching career and wanted to become a coach that wasn't just a wins-loss type of coach, but a coach that was a coach of young leaders, I started to dig into Pat Summitt a little bit more, and her career's just been extraordinary. I mean, the fact that she started in the 70s, where I can't remember what it was, but she was making like a few $100s a month or something like that. And part of her job was washing the uniforms. Like, for her to embrace that and say, I'm going to build a legacy here. Now, I'm not sure that's what she was saying in the moment. That's why I'd love some hang time.
Yeah.
But I'd also like to find out what she thinks about the current state of women's sports. And are we honoring her legacy with the work that we're doing? So.
They just released, and I don't even know what it's called, but it's on, I think, in partnership with ESPN and Hulu. They just released the Pat Summitt legacy and hosted all these events. And so, yeah, it's on my list, my watch list for the next, hopefully the next week or so.
I need to Google that. I did not know that existed.
Yeah, I think it's through Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions. I think they were a part of that, but I've seen in the last 3-4 days since it has come out, so many of the players that either played for her or were recruited by her but didn't get to play for her because of her diagnosis and her untimely death, of course, as well. But what the through line again for me has been is the relationships that Candace Parker is sitting here talking about. Thank you to Pat and thank you to her son Tayler, essentially, for letting Pat show up as a mother figure and a leader for all the women who are on the team, just as much as she did with him, in their home. Yeah. And so I think that when we talk about this idea of creating safe spaces where you can fail and it's still okay and you learn from those failures, I think she's the epitome of what we see in that space.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think sports offers us the arena for that, right? There's no better place, right? Where it, if you're playing softball and you're failing 70% of the time, you're like the star of the team.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The baseball, softball statistics, they get you every time with
Yeah,
the failure rate.
exactly.
Yep. All right. Where can listeners get involved? Where can they support? Where can they follow along with Surge and the great work that y'all are doing?
Yeah. So first and foremost, go to bsnsports.com/surge and register. It's free. But what it does is it puts you on our mailing list and it gets you access to all of the incredible materials that the Surge team creates and provides. And then on Instagram, go to BSN underscore surge. No, I got to get that right. BSN sports underscore surge. Try both of those. I'm pretty sure it's BSN sports underscore surge. And follow along with the Instagram kind of journey that we're on that's specific to Surge. And they celebrate athletes, they celebrate teams. We do special releases. We did a special release of Nike Dunks at one point that was exclusive for Surge members, and they sold out really, really fast.
Of
So
course.
follow along. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us today and to get some hang time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, we will see you back in a couple of weeks. Until then, you can follow along at HangtimeP0D across all socials, or you can check us out, hangtimep0d.com. We'll see you next time.